Bros. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome composer Bear McCreary to the podcast. Bear is best known for his work on Battlestar Galactica, The Walking Dead, and Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Bear will release his second solo rock record, The Singularity, Eklepsis, on Friday, July 31st. Bear talks about the impact movie scores had on him as a child and the lifelong pursuit of making that his career, the creative push and pull of collaborating on scores, his thoughts on AI and the soundtrack industry, wanting to flex his creative muscles and how that led to the Singularity, and a lot more. This was one of my favorite conversations I've ever gotten to have on the podcast, and an absolute blast getting to talk to Bear about his career and life working on TV and movies. I want to give a huge shout out to Tim at Adam Splitter for helping make this interview happen. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for listening. You can find links in our show notes or at asthestorygrows.com for our mailing list, our Discord server, and our Patreon page. And if you like what you hear, I would love it if you subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Never miss an episode and discover your next favorite artist. Enjoy today's conversation with Bear McCreary. I want to start kind of with little Bear McCreary, and like, what is kind of the start of your musical trajectory? Is it piano lessons that your parents made you take? Is it an instrument in elementary school? Is it, learning Metallica guitar? What?
Well, it's definitely movies.
Okay.
My mom took me to movies that I should never have gone to see. She just took me to whatever she wanted to see. So I was like 2 years old watching The Empire Strikes Back or The Natural or Gandhi, just, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing these big melodies, big epic music. And when I was 6 years old when she took me to see Back to the Future. Great score.
Yeah.
But that was the one, not because the score was so much better than any other, but just like my brain was finally ready. It clicked and I was like, wait, what is that? I made her take me the second night. I go, take me again. I took my little cassette recorder, little Fisher-Price toy for kids. I hit record on a cassette tape and held it up over my head, and I recorded the movie. I bootlegged the movie so I could listen to it. I could skip around and fast forward past all this annoying dialogue and sound effects and just hear this music.
Wow.
So you can see my obsession with film music had already started. Yeah. She had started me in piano lessons, my mom. So I started when I was 5, I think. So it was really around that age of 6 that I was put chocolate and peanut butter together. Wait a minute. I'm playing the piano, I'm playing music, and I'm hearing music in film and TV. What is it? Well, how do you do that? And I started picking out melodies from Star Wars and Beetlejuice and later like The Simpsons and trying to figure out how to play film music on piano. And that, so that's all, primordial youth. You can see very clearly how I was already set on my path.
Yeah, that's crazy. Was there ever a point where you're like, where you kind of go a different way and it's just like you discover punk rock or metal and you're just like, maybe I just want to play guitar and be a rock star?
See, here's the funny thing. There was, but it wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
I didn't listen to rock and roll when I was a kid.
Right.
I didn't listen to rock. I didn't listen to popular music. I didn't listen to rap. I didn't listen to hip hop. I listened to film music. That was it. Who did I care about? John Williams, Danny Elfman, Jerry Goldsmith, Basil Polidorus. My film music heroes were my everything. And I did play in a few bands in high school. I played keyboards. And it was really like cinematic rock that first started to catch my ear. literally cinematic in that I saw The Wall, the Alan Parker film, and I was like, wait a minute, what's this? I saw this film called Highlander with a bunch of Queen songs in it. And I go, wait a minute, what's this?
Yeah.
So that really was how I started to discover that I really, really loved rock. And my tastes got sort of heavier and heavier. But it really wasn't until my career had already started in film that I really realized how much I loved metal in particular, and how I started discovering this genre and realizing that in my brain, that same endorphin rush, the same adrenaline rush that would kick in when I heard John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith, I heard it in metal music. It was actually kind of the same thing. It's super emotional, supercharged music that's just designed to make you feel something really intense.
Yeah.
And I found that overlap kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that. Like, my favorite Metallica record has always been S&M, because I just love the orchestral nature. And it just, like, those songs are good. They're better when you put the orchestra behind them. Like, it's so much more epic.
Totally. I mean, also, while we're talking about Metallica, they have opened their shows with a piece of film music for decades.
Yeah.
You know, I think most Metallica fans know that that's The Ecstasy of Gold by Ennio Morricone, one of my heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell that even the guys in Metallica know the proper way to establish the mood for a Metallica show is with this iconic piece of orchestral film music written by an Italian, you know, decades ago.
Yeah.
So I find that fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool. How do you get your start and kind of break into doing, you know, I mean, big break is Battlestar, but how do you break into that? Because, I mean, that's a tough, you know, career.
I did begin my career scoring Battlestar Galactica. I was very young. I was in my early 20s. Should never have happened. But as I've alluded to, I'd already put in my 10,000 hours a couple times. I've been thinking about that since I was 6.
Yeah.
And since I was 12, maybe 13, I was writing music all the time, before school, after school. I was training myself to write in different genres. When I discovered Westerns, I started writing music like Westerns. Discovered horror, I started writing horror music. I was always just eager to try different things. My mentor, when I was 16, was a composer named Elmer Bernstein, one of the great film composers of the 20th century. So I learned a lot from him too about the art of filmmaking and how film music fits in the craft of filmmaking, how to talk with directors. So I was an unusually prepared 23, 24-year-old. Yeah. This is true. You know, how do you get your break? That's how I got my break, was just, it's very hard to boil it down to like an axiom. Here's what you do. However, if you really zoom out, how does anybody get a break in anything? In freelance arts, or even just anything in life, is like you put in the work and you're passionate and positive. And when an opportunity arises, then you are prepared for it.
Yeah.
So that's how that happens. Nobody would ever hire an inexperienced person for anything.
Yeah.
Unless something goes wrong and they can't get the first choice that they want. That's how every career starts, right? That's how mine started. That's pretty much how everybody started. So it is one of those things where there's a certain amount of luck, but the part that isn't luck is that you know, I just written music all day, every day for a decade.
Yeah.
So when I had the opportunity to score Battlestar Galactica, I just did it with all the same people, the same little infrastructure that I had made to score student films, shorts. It was all the same people, same person mixing, same people playing it. I go, hey, this is great. Only guess what? I can pay you this time.
Yeah.
But it was all the same people, right? And we just kept on going. I'm
sure your answer to this question now is different than it would have been when you started working on Battlestar, but when you're hired to do a project, how much of it is we've hired Bear McCreary, give us your score, and how much is there a collaboration process for whatever the project needs, right? Like when you're doing Rings of Power, they're like, we want you to do you, but also here's what Howard Shore did. Don't fuck it up.
It is shocking to me how much it is the latter. It is 100% the latter. It is 100% a collaborative art form. And I learned this when I started working with Elmer Bernstein. It was one of the things I learned because I thought, well, when I see a movie and it says music by James Horner, well, that's what it means. It means James Horner made every decision about the music. Could not be further from the truth. And not in a bad way, just the nature of film, television, video games, it's collaborative. You are in collaboration with people. I go in to every project where I am trying to understand their vision. I always talk about our score. I literally never say my score, ever. It's always our score.
Yeah.
And sometimes that aligns with my initial instinct. Truth be told, the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, as you mentioned, is one of those things where I was like, this is exactly what I want it to be. And they said, yeah, that's what we want. But most of the time it is somewhere in the middle. Most of the time I want to do this, they want to hear this, and we don't speak the same language. So we are trying to find it. You try to navigate through that process and you land on something that is, in the best case scenario, as a composer, you're able to write something better than you would have written on your own because of the notes that you get. Sometimes it's not that. I mean, there are definitely times when I think, okay, I wanted to do this, but you want that, and you are paying the bills. This is your thing, not mine. I always make the analogy, if you hired someone to paint your house, you might hire like an artist like Michelangelo and say, I want you to paint the Sistine Chapel. I want you to paint your vision. But chances are, if you live in that house, you're going to say, I want a blue house.
Yeah.
And if the person goes, I want to paint this house solid black, you would look at them like they have a hole in the head. You wouldn't even be like, well, let's compromise and make it great. You'd be like, no, this is my house. I'm paying you money. Paint my house this color. Sometimes that is the job.
Yeah.
So I think, okay, I'm going to set aside this thing and I'm going to figure out how to use my voice to channel toward this vision that somebody wants on their project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put a pin in that, because we're gonna come back to that, by the way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just put a pin in that idea, because you can probably already see the seeds for why I started making rock records.
Right.
Is planted right there. But I don't want to derail your questions.
Yeah. No, with Rings of Power, with season 2, I remember before that dropped, Amazon released these featurettes with you talking about the score and the music. And it seemed like you were able maybe to flex a little more creative vision and add a little more of these metal elements into the score and take some creative risks. Was that something you brought? And was there any pushback on that?
So funny you mentioned that. I mean, yes, very much. You're reading the tea leaves correctly. It was more like, it wasn't that I was given more creative freedom in the second season of Lord of the Rings. I was more confident in exerting my own influence and bringing more of my personality.
Yeah.
I was working on my first rock record, The Singularity, which ultimately came out in 2024, when I was hired on the Rings of Power in 2021, 22, somewhere in there, 21. But I very much kind of put that rock and metal thing aside for a few months, 10 months, while I worked 18 hours a day on Lord of the Rings. Yeah. So the second season, I'm working on the second season. By now, the Singularity has come out. I formed a lot of great relationships while working on the Singularity. One of them was with one of my favorite singers, Rufus Wainwright, who did a song with me called Type 3 on my solo record. And I thought, oh, this is the guy to sing the Tom Bombadil song. Pitched it to Amazon. Great. Everyone's excited. Rufus Wainwright singing Lord of the Rings. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the second to last episode, and this troll comes out, just starts brutalizing everybody on the battlefield, friend and foe alike. And I'm watching this scene. And one of the things Elmer Bernstein, my mentor, taught me is that you watch the footage and it tells you what it wants. Mm-hmm. You watch it and it just speaks to you. And I'm not going to lie, the footage said to me it wanted Meshuggah. Like, that's what it wanted. What could I do? What could I bring to this scene that would like, I've already been using this massive orchestra and massive percussion and full choir. And I'm like, then this troll comes out and it's even more brutal. What do I do? So I pitched the showrunners, what about my buddy Jens Kidman, the lead vocalist from Meshuggah? What if he comes in and sings on it? Everybody was thrilled. And then I thought, okay, well then, if we're going to do that, why don't we just do a technical death metal song for the end credits? And I thought, this is it. This is where I'm going to get my wrist slapped. I have gone too far.
Yeah.
But sure enough, they were like, yeah, let's go for it. And then Amazon was like, yeah, let's go for it. And then truly the last shoe to drop was the fans. Because I thought, okay, Amazon and the producers are letting me do this, but like, are Rings fans going to be okay with this? But people loved it. I mean, you know, everybody on the internet has their opinions, but
yeah.
Generally, I would say people that are not metalheads loved it. And why shouldn't they? It was intense, and it captured the spirit of what Tolkien wrote. I mean, when you reread The Hobbit, the orcs actually have chants and singing. And if I'm going to be a super nerd, in the animated Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, there is a famous disco song where the orcs were singing. So they tried it then. Yeah. Howard Shore gave it a go with the goblins in one of those Hobbit movies. In the extended version, they cut some of it out of the movie, like, because it's, you know, but you can tell everyone's been trying. Like, we want Tolkien wrote that the orcs have music. Yeah. So to me, it's like, all right, third time's the charm. What does orc music sound like? What does troll music sound like? How about Meshuggah, right? Yeah. And I think it totally flew. I think it was great.
Yeah, I thought it was great, but I like Meshuggah and Lord of the Rings, so like...
It's like chocolate and peanut butter, man. Yeah. And I wrote about it in my blog where I was like, the influence of Tolkien on metal music is profound. Oh, yeah. Especially with bands like Cirith Ungol and Amon Amarth, and not to mention dozens and dozens of songs and bands like Nightwish that draw from this influence. So to me, it's like, it's actually really cool to be able to take something that was developed by this genre, heavy metal, fantasy heavy metal, and put it back into Lord of the Rings. I felt like I was able to facilitate the metal community giving back a little bit into the Tolkien community for like these years of influence. It was very profound for me. It was also that same summer that Gojira played the Paris Olympics, where I just felt like there was like extreme metal is starting to like seep into the mainstream in ways that was very meaningful to me, right? So I felt like, hey, you know, Gojira just played the Summer Olympics, man. So we can put Meshuggah in Lord of the Rings. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Before we turn to the Singularity, I want to ask about, we live in this time and era where any CEO at any company can pull up an app and put in, make me a Bear McCreary song that sounds like Elvish, and get a score. And with studios like Amazon and Apple and, you know, whatever, Peacock pumping out stuff all the time, are you concerned about AI music pushing you out of a job?
We could do a whole podcast about this, so I'm going to keep it concise. My short answers: no, I'm not concerned. I haven't seen any of that. I can tell you that first and foremost, my job is not writing music for you. It is being your therapist. When you are making something, either a short film that you hope will launch your career, or something in the middle of your career that you want to prop up and keep going, or you're an older storyteller and like, this is the crown jewel. To make art, you are immersed in that art. Working with a composer, it's an intimate, collaborative relationship that ends up with music. But we are talking about your film. In many cases, we're talking about your life. Like, I often have people just sitting on my couch here, and it's part of my job, but I also like genuinely care for them. Like, what's on your mind? How's the cut coming together? You know, how's marketing coming together? Are you working on other scripts? Like, what's going on? People, this is what's going on. And it's like, let's figure out how to get this. We have to get you in the state where you can finish this movie. You can finish this story. It's like if you had open heart surgery and you could have someone that you believed was one of the best surgeons in the world, who had a really good bedside manner, and walked in and was like, I know you're scared, but here's what's going to happen. And I've done this a bunch of times and it's going to be okay. Or you could have a robot that would do it. And let's pretend you even know, technically, the robot's going to do just as good a job. There's literally no difference. I think most people would go with the human being.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because people think about, I think the open heart surgery is the better example. Yeah. When you're a filmmaker, it's open heart surgery, dude. You are putting your child on the operating table and you're like, we got to save this. I got to save my baby.
Yeah.
That's how people feel about it. AI cannot come close to replicating that. I feel that if someone could go to a plugin and output music that sounds like I wrote it, if they want to do that, I would highly encourage them to do that. That's if that's the experience you want, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's my short version. The addendum to that is, you said, do I feel that my job is being threatened, or however you worded it? If you had asked me, what should a starting out composer, filmmaker, artist feel? It's a much more complicated and nuanced answer. And I think anybody listening now that is early in their career should not be dissuaded by the presence of AI. I also don't think you need to embrace it by any stretch, because it does iron out your creative voice and flattens it. The one thing to remember is, regardless of technology, what the people who succeed the most tend to be the people that have a good work ethic, are positive and supportive and uplifting to those around them. Like, AI is not going to change that.
No.
It really isn't. So I don't think AI is going to fundamentally change the way human beings make art or receive art. But I am grateful that I'm at the point in my career that I'm at, and I'm not younger.
Yeah.
I am grateful, because it is like, at least I feel like there's a giant storm hitting, and I don't have like a house of stone, but I've got a house of sticks, you know, and it's like, okay, my house is I can hold this together.
Let's turn our attention to the Singularity, this rock project. What was the genesis for this album, the first album initially?
Well, we'll take the pin out of the thing I said, which is, sometimes as an artist scoring for film, television, and video games, you get to say what you want, and other times you must adapt what you're saying to fit. You're painting somebody's house. Mm-hmm. I found that I got so successful in the first 15 years of my career that I actually was not paying attention to the part of my psyche, the part of my spirit that is an artist that has something to say, because I had so many opportunities come up, incredible opportunities. I wouldn't say no to any of these. But I did start to realize that I had something to say as an artist, and it was starting to burn a hole in me. So I think it was 2018. I started writing what became the Singularity 2024. Mm-hmm. And that record, you can see the other reason I enjoy making rock records, aside from just like, what do I get to say as an artist? I get to collaborate with people that I admire and learn from them. I want to learn what it's like working with these people who are I was going to say that they're all my heroes. I admire all of them. Some of them have been my heroes like most of my life, and others are people I'm discovering now.
Yeah.
But, you see that at play in the next record, the Singularity Eklepsis, which comes out on July 31st. And, you have, diverse artists, like you have Steve Vai and Tim Henson from Polyphia on the same track, and you've got Gene Hoglan and Jens Kidman from Meshuggah playing a kind of a super intense technical metal song, and then Stuart Copeland from The Police.
I know, yeah,
has a song. And I mentioned Gojira, they were super high on my wish list, and I got to write a song with Joe Duplantier. My brother Brendan and I, who's my co-producer, lead vocalist, we wrote a song with Joe. Patrick Stump from Fall Out Boy, Alyssa White Blues, Claudio Sanchez from Coheed and Cambria, Duff McKagan and Chad Smith. And Slash. It's just been, it really, I never intend to create like kind of like a faux supergroup. But when I put all the tracks together, I'm just like, damn, dude, this is like a really, really cool collection of people.
Yeah. This second record is it's fucking incredible. Like from start to finish.
Thanks, man.
Every track is so diverse and unique that it's an interesting listening experience without being like random or just like doesn't make sense as a collection. How is that writing process, especially like the track with Stuart Copeland? I mean, it almost sounds like a modern Police song. And so like
the instant he starts playing, it's like there's only one guy that could be, right? Yeah. That's what's so magical about it. The writing process varies from track to track. No surprise there. Yeah. Sometimes I will start songs, bounce them back and forth with my brother, get them into a shape where it's like, it's a song. You can hear the song form. And then we start sharing it with people that might want to get involved. Other times I co-write with people from the ground up. Two of the songs, the two that have Tim Henson on it, Tim from Polyphia, he's a guy, like if you know his playing, you don't want him to just come in and play for 8 bars. Yeah. You want the DNA of what he does in your song. So I would write those songs from scratch with Tim. I got to know Tim really well. Yeah. And Stuart is one of those people. I mean, he'd be the first person, Stuart Copeland is the first person to tell you, like, if you have a part in mind in a song that you've written, he's not the guy to play it. He's not that guy. So I was like, okay, well, how about we set up your mics? I'm going to come into your studio and let's just write something together. So that one was the craziest session because I love Stuart. I mean, obviously I'm a fan of his playing, but I just love his personality. He's like musically, he's like the Tasmanian devil. Okay. Mm-hmm. This guy just like, here's an idea, spin around. Here's an idea, spin around. I'm sitting here thinking like, that's cool. Oh no, this is cool. This is cool. Yeah. And conversely, Brendan and I went into the studio with, Chad from Chili Peppers and Duff from GNR with the intention of writing a song. And in fact, Duff had already sent us a riff in the lead up to that day that he was thinking about. This yielded Cool Kids. So that was much more focused. And of course, those guys have written for Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah. Like they are, I mean, individually, obviously they're part of incredible bands. They're this like secret weapon writing duo. Mm-hmm. Like, so that was a different kind of experience, right? Like I walked in, we had a riff, and instead of like blasting around a billion different ideas, in about 3 hours, we focused and like Cool Kids was done, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, to me, part of the thrill of collaboration is learning from different people how they like to work and how you can get the best from them, right?
Yeah.
You don't want a singer on your track if they don't sound like them, and that can be tricky. I mean, it's not easy necessarily to like write a song that somebody else hears and goes, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Because everybody's voice, literal or metaphorical, is so specific. And unlike my career, like look at Jens from Meshuggah.
Yeah.
Jens has collaborated in the last 40 years with two entities, Meshuggah and me. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. He hasn't guested for anybody else. There's no side solo projects. That's what he does. So he is so insanely good at this.
Yeah.
And in fact, he had a lot of input on the song we did together. It's almost like we're yin and yang, because I'm like the Renaissance man, right? When I worked on God of War, I became an expert in Nordic folk music. Oh, when I did Battlestar, I became an expert in taiko drum music. And I'm just bouncing from thing to thing. So I have this, I have a lot of fairly deep knowledge, but probably the only thing I know, as well as Jens knows what he knows, is orchestral music, which is the thing I've been studying since I was 5. So you mix all that together. Like, what I'm saying is learning how they think is part of the experience that I want to have when I make a record like the Singularity Eklepsis.
Yeah. Which is cool. Like, I mean, I put the record on and went for a run. This Sweet Misery comes on, and I'm like, yeah, this Tim Henson's on this track immediately. But like halfway through, I had to pull up the record to be like, who's singing? And I was like, oh, Claudio. Like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Tim.
It's funny because Claudio and I have been talking for years about doing a song, and we became pretty close. So we were literally, I think I was hanging out backstage at a Coheed and Cambria show, and I know he knows Tim because Polyphia opened for them, is one of their first starter tours. And I mentioned to Claudio, I was like, oh, Tim and I are. He goes, oh, who's going to be on your new record? And I was like, writing something with Tim Henson. And he goes, oh, really? Can I hear it? Now, truth be told, I was like, when we were writing that song, I was like, dude, Claudio would kill this. But I didn't pitch it to Claudio. I was just like, oh, yeah, I mean, sure, take a listen. That song starts in 10 seconds. He looks at me and he was like, do you have a vocal for this? And I was like, actually, Claudio, now that you mention it, I don't. And that's, like a week later, Sweet Misery was done. But that's what I mean by like, you're getting the right personalities. And even in that case, like Claudio and Tim knew each other. So it was like, it feels like there's a connection there. So it's really fun, man. I mean, I love that you recognize Tim's style right away.
Oh yeah. Some people are so memorable and how they play and how their voice.
And some people give me the safety to write the way I want to write. For example, I didn't know Slash when I wrote the Singularity 2024, and he ended up doing this 2 songs on that record. And as I was writing the Singularity Eklepsis, one of the forms I wanted to experiment with, I wanted to write a song about my brother and I wanted to write a song about our Armenian heritage. Mm-hmm. This is the song that became One Fine Day. The format, as I started building this song out, I was like, this is getting pretty epic, man. It's getting pretty big. And then I was like, there's this guitar riff that occurs. And then I was like, well, what I really want is like at the end to do that guitar riff twice through and then like vamp into a solo for like 3 minutes. But I was like, it's the form. It's November Rain. Like, it just is that same form. And I was like, but then I realized, well, wait a minute. Now that I know Slash, it's like if you didn't have Slash on that, you would hear it and go like, all right, well, that's a cool song, but we all know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That like, because it literally is Slash.
Yeah.
It's literally him that I feel like, well, you know what? I feel empowered now to write this. So I sent it to him much later. I was so nervous, even though he and I had done other stuff. We did a movie together. We hang out. We go to lunch. But I was so nervous to play him this because I was certain he would listen and go like, "Bear, come on." But he listened and he called me and he was like, "This is the best song that you've sent me yet." Like, he loved it and immediately got it. And like, one of my favorite points on the record is where his solo at the end of One Fine Day transitions from him playing the riff that I wrote into his improv, and it's just like, oh my God, it's just so perfect. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that made me it made me smile, because that time, even as I was writing it, I was like, I'm gonna write this in such a way that only Slash could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. With the Singularity, you also have a graphic novel. How did that concept come up?
That one was funny because I wrote the Singularity music first. I had spent 15 or 20 years telling other people's story with music, and I didn't want to do that. So I put this record together in an early draft, probably in 2022, maybe 2021. And then it hit me. Like, I am so narratively driven. I am such a narrative musician that there was a story there. Nice. And I was like, damn it. So I called up this guy, Kyle Higgins, a good friend of mine, who's incredibly successful in the comics world, having worked for Marvel and DC. He's written for Batman and Captain America, and he's created his own comics. And I was like, this is crazy, but like, is there a graphic novel in this? Is there a story in this? And he agreed. And so we created a graphic novel with a writer named Matthew Groom out of Australia, who came up with he listened to the record and came up with a clever story that then we iterated on. To me, it was like the ultimate full circle moment, where it's funny because it's like, okay, well, I'm thinking about what fans might think. Bear does music for stories. And what's this record? Oh, there was a comic book and he clearly wrote the music for it. No. It's the other way around. It's still a story and music. It's just that this time the story had to do all the work to like fit the album that I had created. So it was really fun. And I worked with a couple of some of my favorite actors on shows that I've done and games that I've done, where I had them do monologues from the book, which really makes it feel like they are scenes from a movie, because I had them do monologues and I put music behind it. It was really cool. Nice. And the new record definitely fits within that narrative framework. There's not a new graphic novel, but I also think that the current graphic novel can, you can see where some of our current new songs from Eklepsis can sort of fit in that world, which is pretty cool. It's definitely something I want to keep exploring.
Yeah. Album's out at the end of July. You're going to be at Wacken, and then you're taking the Singularity on for a brief West Coast run in September. How is the prep for tour and like complications, because this is such a collaborative process? Are you working on like video screens and backing tracks with all your vocalists?
Look, absolutely. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. First of all, like I'm going out on the road with an absolutely killer live band. My brother, co-producer, lead singer, is an incredible showman. My lead guitarist, who's also an Emmy-winning composer, Omer Bensby, he's like a savant. Like I actually realized one of my composers at my company is one of the most talented guitarists I've ever worked with. Pete Griffin on bass, who's played with Death Clock, and Zappa plays Zappa. And then I got Gene Hoglan on drums, the Atomic Clock, Strapping Young Lad, and Testament, Death Clock. Yeah. Like this guy's a monster. Yeah. So I'm already like so inspired being up there with them and getting them to not only play songs from my record, but I'm filtering themes from my scoring career through them. So like hearing one of the most accomplished heavy metal drummers of all time play God of War or Walking Dead, Battlestar Galactica, like it's pretty awesome. Yeah. Like there's always a visual component. I am like I said, a very narrative driven artist, and so we're deep in the throes of making all the visual assets. We have some backing tracks because there's certain things that just can't translate. I have retro video game synths that pop up alongside gamelan orchestra and all that kind of stuff, so we want to be able to replicate at least that part of it. But I also bring out a violin. And we have a live violinist, this amazing woman named Johanna Kokela, and she's very accomplished. And so hearing her play these melodies from Walking Dead and God of War, like, she brings this ethereal orchestral sensibility. So I think it's pretty spectacular. Like, if people are interested in my music, whether it's the scores or the rock stuff or both, there's really nothing else quite like this, because it's very intimate. It's very like up close and personal. I love conducting an orchestra, and there's something cool about that too. But when you are seeing my band do this stuff, like, you're just getting a more intimate experience, which I think is pretty epic.